Gentleman at the back there.
Hello. I'd like to ask a question about how, well, industry and other parts of civic society can drive government's ambition. It's not the construction example, but a good example recently would be the poverty of ambition of the government on dealing with recycling plastics, where their ambition was to deal with that by 2042. And I think we know there's lots of things being done already to challenge that. So that would be my main question. If I can add on another is, does the government really understand thresholds of when things really start to bite and get difficult? Tim Benton, who's a prof of population ecology, said he spoke to a government minister and said, you know, we're approaching difficult times, risky thresholds, things kicking in, and the government minister said, come back in a few years' time when we're a year away from a crisis point. So I think there's a real problem I see that the government doesn't understand the thresholds, and secondly, they seem to have quite a poverty of ambition on some areas, at least.
Thank you. We can take a couple more, if anyone. Yes, the gentleman at the front here. Could you answer that, you and Baroness?
My name is David Lowry. I'd like to raise a point about a lack of joined-up thinking between the government attempt to implement the Sustainable Development Goals and the way it carries out its actual practice. At the moment, we have the Crown Prince from Saudi Arabia in the UK. He's visiting the government. And yesterday evening, the government put out an announcement that they've struck a £65 billion cooperation agreement, industrial cooperation and investment agreement with the Saudi Arabian government, one part of which is going to be on new defense procurement. And it strikes me that they haven't given the breakdown, but I imagine of the 65 billion, a very large proportion that's going to be on weaponry. And how can the government actually develop proper sustainable development goals in connection with business when one of our biggest companies, BAE Systems, is now going to focus its entire production on making weapons for a country like Saudi Arabia, when it could be diversifying into sustainable technology development and useful things in the medical sector and so on. I mean, a complete lack of joined-up thinking between government policy and government's aspirations.
A very interesting moral dilemma there. This gentleman is next. I think we'll come back to you in the next round of questions.
Oh, hi. I'm from the States also, but I would think that this would probably apply. How can the populace, or what can the government do to get the population more...
Could you hold the microphone closer?
What can the government do to get the population, the populace, more involved and committed? Because it seems like if the average consumer wants something done in a large enough volume, the government will follow. And it's kind of a cycle, one then leads the other. But if you have consumers that aren't interested or whatever, it's kind of like pushing a string, you know. So what can, I guess, a partnership between government and consumers, how can that be furthered? Is it education? But then do we need like a marketing program designed for just average people about what is good about sustainability and environmental issues? Because everybody here, you know, this is what we believe in, but how do we get people that are not interested in that to also buy into that?
Okay, thank you. So we're definitely wanting to know what the government can do here, and I think I'd like to turn to Baroness Young and Ann Bentley, given that you're interacting with the government. If you could reflect on those questions around how can industry and society work together? Does the government understand the critical thresholds? Is there a conflict between being involved in the SDGs and selling weapons? I'm sure there must be.
Yeah. I'm probably going to duck that last point. One of life's great imponderables, the whole business of global security issues and government relationships. But I mean, I think in terms of government response, well, at the moment, the government's got its eye off the ball because it's so fixated with Brexit. And the thing we've got to watch, I think, over the next few years is, depending on what the nature of Brexit is, that we could well find that the whole concept of deregulation gets quite a strong push, depending on who wins the next election and who wins the next prime ministership. Because it does seem to me that what we need is a kind of unholy of bilateral alliances. I think business and the construction industry and the housing industry is in a very strong position to really form alliances with government and local government. Because the reality is, it's in businesses' interest to have high standards, providing they're universally applied across a level playing field. And that's a message I think the construction industry has really got to get over to government and demand, because otherwise we'll have a race to the bottom, we'll have an unlevel playing field, and we'll be reaping the consequences for the future. So I think government tends not to be brave enough, but if we can get industry and government working together, they can be brave. And the construction industry sector plan will be a real test of that under the new industrial strategy. The sector plans, we had the minister in front of us at my select committee on science and technology very recently, and there is a very strong feel that the government's going to step back and let business be the leadership in these sector plans. And the reality is that shouldn't be allowed to happen. It's got to be this partnership. So I think we've got a little microcosm of what needs to be developed in terms of partnerships there in the sector plan for construction over the next few weeks when it's launched and when the debate can begin to happen. And the same goes, of course, in terms of local government and national government. We've really got to get this adversarial approach away and start looking at what are the things that are going to save local authorities in the long term, and how can government invent the instruments that allow them to make sustainable and economic decisions that may not make sense in terms of annual and 3-yearly budgets, but would make huge sense in terms of 15-year budgets and 20-year budgets and century-long budgets. And so I think we've really got to press for local government and government to get back together again a bit more than they are at the moment. In terms of consumer involvement, I mean, I always think that the whole kind of disruptor thing is just getting so necessary. And I hate to say it, but when I was running flood defence for the country, we used to pray for a good flood every now and then, because it was the only thing that concentrated people's attentions. It was ghastly for the folk who flooded. Mercifully, there was very little, if any, loss of life. But the reality was a good flood meant that we actually got the public, local government, national government, other partner bodies very, very interested for a few years until it all died away again. So I don't know what I would ask for by way of a kind of big climate change disruptor thing, because actually what I think is the biggest pressure for the future is population shift. If we're looking forward 20, 30, 40 years, which is what we should be planning for now politically, the reality is climate change is going to make the middle bits of the globe pretty inhospitable and arid, and the temperate zones are going to become overpopulated and the bread baskets of the world. And if that ain't going to be disruptive, I don't know what is. But it will happen very imperceptibly. It'll happen over time, and all of a sudden it will be horrible. So what do we get now? We need a crisis in the next few years, I think, to really drive change. And I'm not sure what I would wish on us.
Okay, I'll take a slightly different tack. As I said, I come very much as a construction industry rep, if you like. And I think the one thing that gets government very engaged is the productivity argument. And I think that every time that you get asked an opinion on anything, if you can rework the word productivity gain, sorry, it's 2 words, the phrase, into the answer, then you stand a much, much better chance of getting somebody to listen to you. Now, purists might feel that's a really poor argument, because we should be sort of, improving our environments for lots of moral reasons. The fact of the matter is the government has no money. And if we can actually produce ways where we can genuinely demonstrate that, whether it's in a single budget year or over a longer period, that what we are putting forward actually makes us more productive, saves us money, delivers better outcomes, however you want to frame it, that is an argument that I actually believe government will listen to. Sadly, just on the sort of the Saudi issue, I think that the jobs and the overseas relationships argument will always be have greater force than, if you like, the moral argument. And I'm not giving a view on that, but if you're an MP with a Lancashire constituency, you will be absolutely delighted with that deal.
Thank you. We actually don't have too long remaining, and I want to give everyone a chance to vote on this, and then we can have some closing words from the panel. So I think I'm going to ask for a show of hands. I'm sorry, we won't have time to take any more questions now. So if we could have a show of hands in terms of, from the point of view of the built environment sector, what's your favourite or most important of these 6? If you can see them there, the ones at the bottom are ensure construction quality and enable behaviour change. So could I have a show of hands for, we've got to get started today because of this issue of lock-in, and it's actually urgent. Good question. Well, 1. I don't know how you're going to choose, but...
Do we get a vote?
Yeah, you can vote. I'll move over here so I can see your vote too. 2, protect natural capital. So that's goal 15. Baroness Young's right behind that one, and quite a few of you. Measure, report, share data. It's important. Collaborate, cross-sector and within the sector. That's got quite a few votes. Ensure construction quality. Oh, we're taking it for granted that the industry will make sure that happens. Enable behaviour change. Oh, a lot of you. Okay, I'm looking to Sue a bit here on, I think it might be between behaviour change and collaboration. I think given that and what the panel said as well, I think there is a thumbs up for the whole lot, but behaviour change and collaboration seem to be top there.
And they
so
interact anyway.
Interacting. Then secondly, in terms of what the government can do, we've got the government should make a plan which is cross-departmental, not just holistic. Yeah, lots of votes for that. We should have an Environment Act, so it's legally binding to really conserve and enhance our environment. Oh, that's very popular. Procurement should include social and environmental outcomes. Oh, that's a big way to make a difference. Local authorities should have more authority to create homes and shape places. We like it, but yeah. The 300,000 new homes should have some standards for placemaking and social and environmental outcomes. Oh, that's a very popular one. And finally, the government should take a lead on energy and water. So I think a big vote for pretty much everything, but it seemed like an Environment Act and placemaking standards for the 300,000 new homes. Would you say that's a correct summation? So thanks for your input to this. This will go forward to be included in the outcomes document, which will be emailed to you in 2 or 3 weeks' time. And I'd just like to highlight that you can pop down and find out more about the SDGs at the stand over at D98. You can find out more about the SDGs, more about getting involved in UK stakeholders for sustainable development, and make pledges. So you can see here, Rockwool, Stephanie from Rockwool has pledged that sustainability and commercial strategy are one and the same, and we're going to actively contribute towards 10 of the 17 SDGs. Julia, my colleague at Bioregional, is going to write to her local MP, who's Harriet Harman, and ask her to champion implementing the SDGs in the UK. Caroline Laurie, Head of Sustainability at Kingfisher PLC. they're committed to saving energy, saving customers money by saving energy and water. So it's not just a debate that we walk away from today and a conference we walk away from. It's something to really take forward in our everyday lives. And so if I could ask the panel for any closing thoughts that you have, a few remarks from all of you as we finish here.
Plant trees. More trees. They do wonderful things for everything.
Davide?
Yeah, no, I agree. We need more trees, and I'll see you next year to check the progress we made on each of these items in the wish list.
Hey, thank you. Kayla?
Sure, trees. Trees are good. I think I wish everyone would actually take a deep read of the SDGs. I think people don't, and you should think quite deeply about what you do and how what you do, either in business or even personally what you consume, how you impact the SDGs and how you can change that.
And Anne?
Yeah, I couldn't sort of miss the opportunity. Really, don't forget the commercial angle, because that will get you converts.
That's a very good point. And in fact, Caroline Laurie highlighted Better Business report, which talks about the trillions of opportunities for business in terms of implementing the SDGs, and that it's a huge part of their business now. So that's a very convincing case for the government as well. Okay, we need to wrap up. It's the closing session of the conference. I think the whole session closes soon. I just wanted to thank Sue James. If you could stand, Sue. A bit of an unsung heroine on International Women's Day, who's been working behind the scenes to make the SDGs really mean something throughout this whole conference, and my colleagues at Bioregional, not all of whom are here today, who worked on that too. So thanks everybody, and good evening.